Hi, Dr. Tom Gerard here, and this chapter we're introducing quite a bit of concepts that relate to what we used to call short-term decision analysis. And now they call it some different stuff, so let's take a look here. Differential analysis and product pricing. So remember, managerial accounting, we got this toolbox. We got to make some decisions as management, and what do? We pull out the tool. Differential means just the difference between two things. We're looking at two different decisions, and do we go with decision A or decision B? Maybe it's more, right? Maybe it's 5, 6 different things. Do I go with A, B, C, D, or E, right? Maybe one of those decisions is how do I price my products that I'm going to sell? So differential just means looking at the differences. So here's the objectives. Prepare a differential analysis report. I'm not going to get into all of these things in detail in this video. This is just an overview of what's covered in this chapter. Determine the selling price of a product. Okay, using the product cost method. Remember, in accounting, everything's about costs. Now, you talk about setting selling prices, again, in your other course, maybe in marketing, maybe in economics, maybe in other business classes. But this is managerial accounting is about everything from making decisions based upon costs. So this is selling price using the product cost method. We also talk about bottlenecks. It's another word. What is a bottleneck? Well, that's the thing at the end of my glass bottle, right? When I'm drinking the old-fashioned Coca-Cola or Pepsi, I always like to say both of those. Maybe it's RC, Royal Crown Cola, anyway, which is the other, the third beverage company. Anyway, so bottleneck means we're manufacturing bottleneck. We're making something and there's something inhibiting the output. They call this a constraint. And one of the other my favorite topic in managerial accounting, as you know, everyone's my favorite topic. If you listen to me long enough, they're all my favorite topics. But anyway, one of them really is the theory of constraints. Something is stopping us or slowing us down from producing at the maximum, and not necessarily maximum as far as quantity, but the highest output, quality, quantity, everything that you would measure on how we are performing. And what is it that's stopping us? There's something that's stopping us. So for example, we only have 24 hours in a day, right? So maybe you're operating a first shift, and then, oh my gosh, sales are good. We're going to operate a second shift, and we're making stuff, now we're going 2 shifts in our facility. And now it's so good that we do the third shift. And now we're operating 24 hours a day, 7 days a week in our facility. And now we have a bottleneck because sales are still doing good. And now we got a major decision to make. Are we going to open up a new plant? How are we going to do this? Because we have reached the capacity or a bottleneck in our manufacturing process. Now that's just an example, but it could be many things. It could be labor shortages. It could be facility shortages. It could be supplier shortages, right? Or maybe when we start out in business, you're a small business owner, and you start out with a machine that puts out 1,000 widgets an hour, and then what do you have to do? Well, now that's not enough. I got to upgrade, so I got to go out and buy a new equipment that puts out 10,000 widgets an hour, and so on and so forth. So that's a bottleneck. Very simple to understand. So the reason why that this chapter in the older accounting books was called short-term decision analysis is because a lot of these things are decisions unlike buying the new piece of equipment that I just talked about. That's in another chapter, but because that's a long-term investment. We hope that we're going to spend $1 million on a piece of equipment. It's going to last more than a year. So anyway, short-term decision analysis a lot of times are things that we can implement, and then maybe we could change our mind later on, and it's not a major change, okay? But however, they do get into certain things. Like, for example, they talk about the pricing. We already talked about the pricing. Companies change pricing all the time, so, and now we're talking about on the manufacturing side. If you talk about retail, it changes by the second, really. There's some great videos on the internet about Amazon and how the prices change by seconds, using artificial intelligence to know what things are, the supply and demand and all these kinds of things. So, but as far as our purposes here, If I can get this to function. If I can get this to function. Selling price, bottlenecks, yield pricing. Now this has to do with service businesses, because maybe you're not manufacturing a particular product, but you have a service you're performing, right? How many patients can the doctor see in a day? How many tax returns can the accounting firm perform, right? That kind of thing. But so let's get into some of these other, now here they're going to talk about differential. I want to try to jump to some of the ideas that you think about here. So remember now, again, I'm going to keep saying this throughout my introductions. It's tools. It's tools that you use. Managerial accounting is a toolbox. And what are some of the decisions we might be deciding? And these are the things that we're going to look at in this particular chapter. Do we replace a fixed asset, or do I repair it? One of the examples they used is, you got one of those gas stations that have the little car wash. You fill up with gas, you get the free car wash. The car wash uses one of those drive-through things, and after so many years, you either have to replace the brushes and some of the equipment in it and really repair it because it's used a lot. And this is just again an example. Or do I just tear the whole thing down and get the newer, more modern, more efficient equipment, right? Maybe the brushless car wash. But so I have to make a decision. Do I fix the one I got, or do I get a new one? Selling a product or processing it I'm starting with the harder ones. So sometimes we're making a product. One of the things that when I used to be in the food wholesale distribution business, I got to go to the Little Debbie manufacturing plant where they made the granola bars, right? Sunbelt granola bars owned by Little Debbie company, which is the McKee Foods Corporation. And they actually made Rice Krispies. So Rice Krispies is a manufactured product made out of rice. So they would make Rice Krispies and they'd use the Rice Krispies in their Star Crunch things. If you ever had a Star Crunch, or they use it in the granola bars. But what are they saying is I could actually make, if I have the capacity to make billions of Rice Krispies, I could turn around and not only make my granola bars and my other things that I use Rice Krispies for, or I could sell Rice Krispies to another firm. I could process further, which means I'm going to take my Rice Krispies and make it into a granola bar, use it in granola bar, I should say, or I could sell it out. Maybe I'm just in the Rice Krispie business. That's all I do is make Rice Krispies for other companies that don't have their own facility to make that. Accepting additional business at a special price. These are all decisions you talk about in this chapter. So again, a lot to cover here. A lot of great things to know if you're going into business or management, because these are all decisions you're faced with all the time. You got a special order, right? Maybe I have a print, what do you call it? I'm going to make it a small business now instead of big giant corporation. I do a screen print t-shirt business, right? And I do it for maybe local churches or school groups or youth groups or football, little league teams or something, right? And I'm doing all this work and I have the capacity to do more. So again, going back to the bottleneck, if I'm bottlenecked and I'm already doing as much work as I possibly can in my however many hours a week I'm working, but let's just say I'm not. Let's say I can work 8 hours a day or even more, which most small business owners work way more than 8 hours a day. But let's just say I'm working, I want to work 8 hours a day. I don't want to work any more than that, but I'm only working 6. So I have extra capacity. Now, what if somebody says, well, you normally do, the Little League team, you do, 25 to 50 shirts, and somebody comes along and says, hey, and you're charging, say, $10 or something like that. I'm just making all this up so you get the picture here, what we're talking about. I normally charge I'm making the Little League team the $10 shirts, and then and I sell anywhere between 20 and 50, at $10. And then somebody comes along and says, hey, listen, we got a big event or something, or we want to take these shirts and resell them, and we have a special design, and we're going to buy 1,000 of them. We're going to buy 1,000 shirts, but we want them for less than $10. How much are you willing to charge us for 1,000 shirts instead of the $10 for 50 of them? Okay, so that's accepting additional business at a special price. It says additional because if I'm already working my 40 hours a week, which is minimal for a small business person, I can't take on anymore if I don't have the capacity. I don't have more time, right? Or more, maybe my screening print machine can only put out so much. Okay, manufacturing or purchasing a needed part. Okay, so this is they call this a make or buy. This is where I have we talked about, do I make, if I'm Little Debbie, do I make my own Rice Krispies or do I buy Rice Krispies from a Rice Krispie company? If I'm a car manufacturer, do we make cars? We're Ford or General Motors or Chrysler. Are we buying our radios from Sony or JVC or whoever makes them? Or are we got our own radio plant, right? General Motors radio. Most of the time, those types of things we're going to purchase from a third party that's their expertise. If you how many times you get in the car and you get the premium edition, it's got the JBL sound system, right? Well, maybe we manufacture our own sound system, but you get the premium, you're going to get that. But the idea here is, if I'm making something in-house, should I be, and somebody offers, and we know what it costs, by the way, right? You're in managerial accounting, you know how much it costs us to make, say, the radio for the car. We know exactly how much it costs. And let's say, for example, it costs us $100 to make each radio for each car that we put out. And again, I'm just making all this up for example. And then a manufacturer of a radio company, that's all they do is make radios, says, hey, well, we can make the radios and sell them to you for the same type of radio, everything same, for $75. Okay, so now we have to make a decision. Do we want to contract with somebody for $75? Or do we keep making them ourselves for $100, right? So that's a decision, and there's a pros and cons to both of those things, right? And again, if I was teaching the whole class, we could talk all about that. Discontinuing in an unprofitable segment. At some point, you decide, well, this particular product, we have a series of products, and at some point, you have a product that is unprofitable. Now, when you talk about this, again, every one of these decisions you make in business have consequences, right? Either they're good consequences or they're bad consequences. One of the things you see a lot of time in this particular one is that what happens if for example, I'm Procter & Gamble and I make shampoo and I make conditioner. So let's say, and again, this is all made up, but let's just say I lose money on conditioner, but I make money on shampoo. Now, do I discontinue conditioner because I'm losing money on it? Unprofitable segment? Well, probably not, because, when people go and they buy Pantene shampoo, they want Pantene conditioner, or, whether I just say Pantene, but it could be any Procter & Gamble one, or it could be their competitor, Unilever. Whatever shampoo you use, you look on the back, it's most likely going to be a product, no matter what the name is. It's going to be a Unilever or it's going to be Procter & Gamble. And there could be some others out there, but those are the big players, The idea is even if I'm losing money on the conditioner, I don't discontinue it, because maybe it's a pack, it's already shrink wrapped together. I'm buying conditioner and shampoo together. Again, I'm using that as an example. It could be many different things. You don't have baby and delivery if you're a hospital without having pediatrician, right? From when the baby's born. It goes together. So, we're not making any money on pediatrics. Shall we get rid of pediatrics? Well, probably not, because when people have a baby, they need to have the doctor, the pediatrician, check the baby out, right? Okay, so leasing or selling equipment. So this is another thing. So let's say I did have a piece of equipment and I decide, hey, we're no longer going to use this equipment because we want to upgrade. We want to get the newer model, right? And maybe it's a machine, maybe it's a vehicle. It could be a building. The idea is do we just sell it or do we lease it out? Think about if it was a building. That's a good example, because what happens if we've got this building we're no longer using, because now we used to make radios over there, and we're contracting and getting radios for $75 instead of it costing us $100, but now we got this great big old warehouse. So what do? We don't really need it because we're already covered on all of our other things that's going on. So do I just sell that building, or do I keep the building and lease it out and get money from the lease, right? Now, I'm in the car building business. I'm not in the real estate business. So again, if real estate's your business, that's a whole different concept. But in this case, we're trying to make a decision on what we should do with the building. Now, again, Every decision has pros and cons. In that particular case, if I sell the building and then later on we need to expand because business is good, or maybe I decide that, okay, the radio supplier is not working out, we got to go back to making our own radios, whatever, I need the building, and now I've already sold it. So, so that might lead into those decisions. So this chapter is all about these, what we used to call short-term decisions, because in many of these cases, we could reverse it. Now, if we're selling a building or leasing it, that may be a little different, and that goes into our next chapter, which has to do with long-term decision making, which is when we are talking about buying buildings and machinery and things that we're going to be using for longer term. So anyway, I wanted to cover this. That's what you're going to be talking about. A lot of different decision making in this particular chapter. A lot of different tools. Remember, you may be just the screen print guy or lady. You got your little business here doing screen print shirts. All of these decisions you're going to face. Do I get a new screen printing machine, or do I repair the old one? Right? Do I sell the old one, or do I lease it out to somebody else? That's not my competitor. So those are decisions that you face even as a very small business owner, and it's also decisions that big giant corporations face. So this is great, and of course, like I said, I think all of it's great. But anyway, move on to the next chapter after this. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.